This video is sponsored by the military online game War Thunder. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Here's the hook. Your car can read, monitor, even share your private messages or phone calls, and it's perfectly legal. Okay, now that I got your attention, today we're talking about the automobile industry because the automobile industry is probably the scariest example of unregulated data collection I've ever seen, possibly even beyond typical juggernauts like social media and big tech. Right off the bat, the vehicle you drive is about to get a whole lot more complicated very soon. As part of the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, a piece of bipartisan legislation signed by President Biden in the US, vehicles manufactured after 2026 will be required to have systems that, quote, passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired, and two, prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if impairment is detected, end quote. Basically, your car is going to surveil you in some capacity or another to determine whether or not you are fit to drive it, and then kill the function of the vehicle if it decides that you're not. That's pretty insane, if you ask me, and obviously requires us to question how that impairment detection will even work in the first place, and who has access to the kill switch, most importantly, but it's not precisely related to the topic of surveillance. A much more congruent example would be self-driving taxis and law enforcement. As the self-driving taxi phenomenon continues to exponentially grow, with LiDAR-dependent robo-taxis from a variety of different companies popping up in major cities, multiple of them across the country and the globe, there is a secondary application beyond the simple customer side of getting people to and from a particular destination. I've mentioned this before in a different video, but according to documents obtained by Motherboard, San Francisco police departments already have a framework in place to work with Waymo, a dominant self-driving taxi company in the area, stating, quote, autonomous vehicles are recording their surroundings continuously and have the potential to help with investigative leads. Information will be sent in how to access this potential evidence. Investigations has already done this several times, end quote. That's kind of intense when you realize that a LiDAR-based Waymo Jaguar I-Pace robotaxi, increasingly one of the most common models on the road today, has 14 external cameras covering 360 degrees, both short and long range, ultrasonic sensors, as well as internal cameras in the vehicle, which are always on, always recording, and can be utilized by law enforcement as a mobile surveillance platform. Also, that kind of data is the backbone of big tech business. Waymo already acknowledges that they share user data with third parties for the sake of advertising, though they do have an option to opt out of this, in California at least. But the gist of it is that autonomous vehicles are becoming a bristling surveillance apparatus with incredible speed. Still, all of that considered, it's not even the worst part of the picture, because all that's in the future. Some of it is based on the rickety landscape of American politics, which is anything but certain, and the road from here to there is definitely not a linear pathway. The main topic for today about how your car is spying on you is much more immediate and has to do with a series of lawsuits that showcase precisely how far the automotive industry is already able to go. All right, today's video, once again, is brought to you by War Thunder. Recently, I covered the topic of military secrets and discussed how manuals and technical specifications have been leaked on the War Thunder forums like 15 separate times, which is insane. The video is linked down below, by the way. It's a great watch. Check it out. But even as all of that happens, the developers have maintained a good sense of humor and embraced the memes, so to speak. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. You can play more than 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships. Every vehicle is extremely detailed, which makes it highly immersive, and you can play right now for free on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. The vehicle collection draws from a span of over 100 years, 1920s through present day, with realistic damage mechanics to components and crew, and they have an in-depth customization system for camo, historical markings, and decorators. There's some pretty cool vehicle aesthetics that people in the community have managed to put together. On a personal level, competitive PvP is always a draw for me. Outpositioning, maneuvering, and outthinking opposing players is like the cocaine of gaming, in my opinion, which is the entire point of War Thunder, bringing that competitive environment to a military vehicle simulation. If you click the link down below in the description for a limited time, new and returning players, if you haven't played for 6 months or more, can claim a bonus pack including multiple premium vehicles, premium account, and some more stuff as well. Again, link down below in the description where new and returning players can claim a bonus pack with multiple premium vehicles. Big thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. To briefly explain, modern cars very often come equipped with what's called infotainment systems. Actually, they all do now, and that's a function of the 2018 law on required backup cameras. Cars produced after 2018 must have a reverse camera in the vehicle, which means a computer and a screen, which means some form of infotainment system, some rudimentary one, is layered into that framework. In essence, this is a digital hub that controls a variety of vehicle functions, but also serves as a drive surveillance apparatus. One of the more deluxe examples would be the Snapdragon cockpit platform from Qualcomm, which basically monitors every single thing you do, say, or touch in the entire car. On top of this, pretty much any modern vehicle is already harvesting incredible amounts of data per hour. According to consulting firm McKinsey, modern connected cars generate upwards of 25 gigabytes of data per hour through a bevy of sensors, and they typically share that data with a coalition of at least 37 different insurance, telecom, and entertainment companies. Now, data collection itself is just a part of modern life, unfortunately, but for car companies, it gets a lot more intense than you may imagine. Not only do they collect information about the world around the vehicle, weather, traffic conditions, signage, etc., etc., they also collect data about you, the driver, and if you've ever hooked up your phone to the car, they basically tap everything they can get their hands on, and you let them because you signed the lease agreement. Originally conducted by the Washington Post, an experiment where the infotainment system of a 2017 Chevy Volt was hacked revealed a staggering amount of personal information being recorded. The destinations you drive, obviously, but also phone numbers, call logs, private messages, even user photos, contacts, emails, and when it comes to more sophisticated cars like a Tesla Model 3, video snippets, facial data, and driver attention metrics potentially. That was in 2017. 6 years ago, and since then, the amount of data collected has only ever increased. The most troubling thing of all, it's completely legal. A recent federal decision in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that auto manufacturers can, in fact, record the entirety of a user's phone logs, messages, and activity if they want to. Quote, "This case is one of 5 related diversity class actions in which a group of Washington residents alleged that automobile manufacturers recorded and intercepted their private text messages and call logs from their cell phones when they connected their phones to their respective vehicles' onboard infotainment system." The cases are related because, although the class actions were brought against different automobile manufacturers, yeah, they all do this. We're talking about Honda, Toyota, Volkswagen, General Motors, etc. But anyways, back on task. Although the class actions were brought against different automobile manufacturers, the factual background and legal issues are essentially identical. Skipping forward. Plaintiff's operative complaint alleged that the vehicle's infotainment system downloads and permanently stores all text messages and call logs from plaintiff's cell phones without their consent. At the pleading stage, this alleged a violation of a substantive privacy right is sufficient to confer standing. We also conclude, as in Jones, that the district court properly dismissed the merits of plaintiff's claim under the WPA, end quote. It goes on further, but effectively what I see is that the claim of automakers permanently downloading the entirety of your personal communication from your cell phone does not meet the legal requirement to be considered an illegal privacy violation. That is just absolutely fucking wild in my view. Now, all of this has to be viewed in context. Automotive manufacturers are able to pinpoint your precise location at all times, meaning that if you, say, visit a smoke shop 5 times per week, they can extrapolate that you either work there or you habitually smoke tobacco products, and then they can tell which of those it is, because if you stay there for 8 hours per day for 5 days, then you obviously work there or in that complex. But if you're only checking in for 5 minutes, then you're probably buying a product. Well, if they have your entire phone history as well, with even rudimentary machine learning these days, which they all have, they can probably pinpoint precisely what your reason to visit the shop actually is. Well, once they know that, if you also make routine visits to a radiation oncologist, for example, they would be able to extrapolate that you likely have some sort of ongoing cancer treatment, presumably from chronic cigarette or other tobacco smoke. And that medical knowledge is not governed by HIPAA because it's gleaned from contextual clues, not disclosed by a licensed medical provider. The level to which car manufacturers can surveil your life is unbelievable, and they are still free to sell that data whenever and wherever they choose. With the scope of this data collection, whether or not you are accepting of an automotive manufacturing company having and storing it all, consider the fact that a Tesla Model S was hacked by a man named Mark Rogers using nothing but an iPhone at DEF CON 23. His mindset is that the industry is moving much faster than regulators, allowing, believe it or not, car companies to be the biggest invasion of privacy in the modern world. Here's one for you. Nissan? Yeah. Nissan discovered in June of 2022 that an unauthorized person had accessed the personal information of 18,000 customers of theirs and didn't even report it until December. Of course, Nissan said there was no evidence that the data had been misused in any way, obviously. But that's what every single company who suffers a data breach always says, and auto manufacturers are harvesting more sensitive personal information than practically any other corporate entity ever in any industry, period. A particular quote from Lisa Joy Rosner, the chief marketing officer at a vehicle data firm called Autonomo and featured in the Wall Street Journal, struck me as very descriptive here. Quote, "The thing that car manufacturers realize now is that they're not only hardware companies anymore, they're software companies," end quote. This was extremely poignant because vehicles are rapidly becoming the most advanced consumer computers out there on the market. Your new car is wildly more complex than its predecessors even just a few years ago, and with every advancing stage of development, they accelerate further beyond phones, laptops, even desktop computers. Car manufacturers are making vehicles, yes, but they are also making some of the world's most sophisticated surveillance platforms and breaking into the world of mass data collection as a business model, which will become infinitely more profitable as time goes on. I suppose it's logical that this would be the inevitable outcome, but when the regulatory environment doesn't seem to care about vehicle companies pushing the boundaries of data collection as a market, it makes things quite a bit more unsettling. On the one hand, big tech is routinely being scrutinized for their data policies in many parts of the world, but car companies, well, they just make cars, right? In the end, I thought it was an interesting topic, so here I am discussing it. All of this has certainly made me much more wary about plugging my phone into someone else's vehicle, or even my own vehicle for that matter, and makes me even more determined to eventually get my dream car, which is a 1970 Dodge Charger with zero electronics in it. I've got a long way to go on that, but someday it'll happen. That's it. If you want to support, check out the links down below. War Thunder, the video sponsor, of course, special pack bonus for new and returning players, memberships on YouTube, Patreon, locals, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.